If you'd like to get this and or any other Safari Ltd product, make sure to head over to www.safariltd.com and use the promo code KikiandCoffee at checkout, or use the link provided in the description to not only save 15% off of your next order, but you will also be financially supporting myself and the channel. So without further ado... What is up, guys? It is KikiZilla101 here yet again, back for another one-take review, and this episode is going to be super special because we're actually going to be reviewing all of the Safari Ltd Ceratopsians in one video. For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge Ceratopsian fan, and I've been wanting to get a hold of all of their Ceratopsians for a long time now, and I finally have gotten it, because the Diabloceratops and the NOS2 Dussehratops were both two of the ones that I got in my most recent Safari Ltd order, along with those 2020 figures and that Kauno's Ray that we've recently reviewed. So yeah, we're going to briefly take a look at all of them. We're going to give them each a rank, or a rating out of 10, and then we will rank them and find out which one is the best out of the Safari Ltd Ceratopsians. Alright, so let's get started. We're going to pull these guys all off to the side, and we're going to go in order of release. So that leaves us with the Vegaceratops to go first. The Vegaceratops is one that I was pushing off for the longest time. I just wasn't super impressed with it whenever I saw pictures of it or just saw the promo pics. And it was just never a genus that really captured my attention. But I actually ended up getting it because of Mesozoic Isle, and I needed well, to be honest, a fodder animal for George to end up killing, which took place of in place of a Chinosaur Styracosaurus that was in the original show. But this one actually really impressed me in person, like by a significant margin, because the detail on this one is really well done. It's very crisp, very minimal smudging. Unfortunately, a lot of Safari's figures do have a lot of smudging on them, especially nowadays, and I think that's just a result of the molding process. But a lot of the detail kind of gets lost with that. But on this guy, I honestly really can't find any. It's really well sculpted, very well molded. It just has come out really well. And the detail is just really good. I mean, the weakest part is probably just around the copyright information across the bottom. There is some missing scales, but that honestly makes sense because, you know, you have the copyright information there. So not really a big deal. My main issues with this figure is that its back does look pretty shrink-wrapped. Like, it has a weird back line, and the tail doesn't really attach to the hips correctly. It attaches too low, almost like a dragging tail dinosaur, but then it swoops its tail upwards. The legs are also really awkward, and it just doesn't feel natural, but it's not too terrible. The feet are also pretty fat. They're not the most accurate things in the world. And the face is probably the biggest problem, because Vegaceratops in particular had a much shallower face, and the horn, the nasal horn, was actually much smaller. These beaks were not as sharp or hooked. They were much smaller and more subtle than they are on this figurine. Although that is probably my favorite feature of this figure, if I'm being honest, is the very sharp beak, and some very cool, very cool dry brushing. The paint on this figure entirely was really impressive to me. It has some really nice dry brushing that really brings out the how alive the figure looks. If you guys really want to see this figure at its best, please go watch Mesozoic Isle Episode 1 when it makes an appearance. It looks amazing in natural lighting, in a natural setting, the colors and everything. Honestly, I think this one is the most well-painted out of all of the figures from the Ceratopsian range from Safari. This one does have a little bit of a paint mishap right there. But overall, it's a pretty good figure. It's got a couple accuracy issues, but really it's a very surprising figure, and I'm going to end up giving this one a 7.5 out of 10. And by the way, this one was made in 2012, so that's when this one was started. So that one's our starting one at 7.5 out of 10, and we're gonna try to get through the other ones a little bit quicker because well, we just spent quite a bit of time on that one, but there was a lot to say. So the Diabloceratops is the next one. Now, Diabloceratops, for those of you who don't know, is one of my favorite genuses of Ceratopsian. It was my favorite for the longest time until Triceratops actually recently deranked it. And I was really excited to get this one finally. It's very nicely done. It always looked a lot more slender inside of the pictures that I saw of it, but it's actually a lot more stubby in person. It's a lot more appropriately proportion for a Ceratopsian, so very well done there. The only main accuracy issue with this one is that the snout is actually too elongated. It should be a little bit further back and set into the skull. The eyes, while I do like that there's red as the eyes, it does kind of like stand out a little bit, which I'm not super big of a fan of. And also, just from below, I don't really like how much of the tan sits through. I think it looks better from above because it was clearly spray painted from above, so most of the scales are actually painted on the top. As you can see there, it looks a lot lighter here, and then you flip it, and it becomes darker. And that's not just lighting, that's actually just the way it is. So, it's a really, really nice figure. I was actually not really too happy with it when I first got it, but I quickly warmed up to it, and I think it's a pretty good one. This one's going to end up getting an 8.5 out of 10. No, a 9 out of 10. So this one's actually really good. I don't really have many objective issues with it. So yeah, the 9 out of 10 is the solid score for this 2013 Diabloceratops. It's currently in the lead. Our next one is the 2014 Pachyrhinosaurus. Easily one of my most excited ones. I got this one relatively recently too. I always really excited about this because there's not really that many Pachyrhinosaurus figures out there in general, and this one's definitely the best, or at least the one I liked the most. The pose is a little bit off-putting. Definitely this leg here is a little bit awkward. The way it's coming out there, and it's definitely a little bit too thinly built for Pachyrhinosaurus. Pachyrhinosaurus is a little bit more stocky. But actually, I was really shocked to find that one of the biggest inaccuracies of this figure is actually its face. I was looking up pretty much every genus, every species of Pachyrhinosaurus, and every single one of them does not have a boss like this. This weird little protrusion off of the nose just is not present on any of them. The boss is actually more of something that kind of comes off of the entire snout. So it's actually like these grooves would go down almost to the bottom of the jaw here. So they would really just become an entire mass on the front of the face rather than this like almost like hammer-like horn. Which is what it's portrayed more like on here. So that's inaccurate. And I have looked at the specific species with these same frill ornamentation, and it is the same case on that one. So there's, I forget what it was called, but basically there's no excuse for the way that the boss looks on this guy, which is really disappointing because it was one of my more excited ones. I really like the colors, even though they are pretty bland and they're brown. I like the subtle patterns on like the frill and stuff like that. I think it's really nicely done. And also just it's one of the more well-detailed ones, like consistency-wise. There's very little smudging on this one. I think it's probably the second best one in terms of no smudging. So it's got some really nice parts to it, but unfortunately the accuracy parts are definitely going to bring it down, and that's why it's going to get an 8 out of 10. So that's going to put him right in the middle, just above the Vegaceratops with a 7.5 and the Diabloceratops at a 9. So the Diabloceratops remains in the lead. Now, for one of the newest ones I have, the 2015 NOS2 Dussehratops. This one is such a cool figure, and I was utterly shocked when I got it in person of how good it was, and I'm really disappointed I waited as long as I did. I've never been a huge fan of NOS2 Dussehratops as a genus in particular. It just never really captured me, and I also was never really a big fan of this figure in particular. I knew its pose was quite nice, but I never really cared for the color scheme that much. But I have to say, in person, I really like it. I really think it has a nice color scheme. It's very unique. It stands out among other Ceratopsian figures I have with this gray and then this nice yellow. Now I will have to say this is the second variant of it. There's an original release which has like spots on the frill and a lot less yellow in this area. And this one looks significantly better, pretty much agreed upon by everyone. All of my friends that have it all prefer this one. So yeah, this one's definitely the better variant, so I would keep that in mind. But this is the more common variant as well, because the first release was just like maybe the first wave of them, and then all the rest look like this. So if you're going to get one, you're likely going to end up getting this one anyways, which is the superior version. Also on this version that's not on the other one is it's very hard to see, but this one does actually have I might end up having to put up pictures so you guys actually see it because it's really hard to see, but there is actually a brown iris and a black pupil, which is really cool and very minute detailing. The detail in particular on this one is incredible, very crisp, very little smudging on this guy, just beautiful detail. The colors really is more of a subjective thing if you have an issue with it. Personally, I like it. I don't think there's anything objectively wrong with the colors. And definitely not accuracy-wise, because we have no idea what NOS2 Dussehratops was in terms of colors. The horns are extremely well done, and I kept looking. I was digging and digging to find a single flaw with this thing, with the accuracy. Even the body shape really has like almost no issues with it. The skull has like almost no issues with it. The only little nitpicky thing that I could find is that these little knobs that are on the front of the frill there are too big. They're much smaller on the actual animal. But it's such a tiny nitpicky thing, and I kept trying to find it because I just, inside my gut, and for how I've felt about this figure for years, I'm like, no, there has to be something wrong with it. There isn't anything wrong with this thing. Okay? This thing is amazing, and I'm completely shocked and surprised at how good it is, but this thing has to get a 10 out of 10. So, now with that, we're getting a new leader. The 2015 NOS2 Dussehratops is 10 out of 10, new leader of the Ceratopsians. Now, for 2017, we got the Ideasource. This Ideasource is definitely one of the best Ceratopsian figures out there. It's just got this beautiful lichen green all over its body with this nice like orangish brown that just kind of rustically mixes in with all the rest of it. Its head is a little bit more of the brownish color, but it's got this nice like pinkish or this pink and yellow frill, which is very unique, but I do have to kind of admit it is a little bit distracting occasionally. If I can pull the light away a little bit, maybe you can see it better. It does look a little bit weird sometimes from some angles, but the detail on this one is yet again one of the best, one of the minimal smudging out of all of them. The beak looks amazing. There is some paint coming out of the mouth there that comes up onto that. And accuracy-wise, it really doesn't have much going on with it except for this. I don't know why, but ever since I've noticed this, I can't unsee it. There's two of these little horn knobs right here on this side above the eyebrow ridge, and there's only one on this side. And I was so confused for the longest time, but yeah, that's completely inaccurate. I mean, technically, you could have an animal like with something like that, but it's just very odd that there's only two on this side and one on that side. So just very weird. Clearly, someone wasn't paying attention while sculpting this, but that's just very, very interesting. And yeah, the pose on this one is really well done. I like the pose on this one. The tail feels a little bit stiff, but not really a major issue for me. Just a really, really solid one overall. Really, I'm just going to bring it back for the color right here, just kind of standing out a little bit in a negative way for me. The tail can be a little bit stiff looking, the paint mishap, and the, the missing hornlet up here on the top. That's all going to bring this guy down to a 9.5 out of 10. I know it only brings him down a half a point, but it is just enough for me to say it's not a perfect 10 for me. There's a couple things that bother me about it, but it's so freaking good. It's almost a 10. So that's a 9.5 out of 10, second on the leaderboard there. Now, next up, we're in 2018 now. We have the Regali Ceratops, one that I was super excited about when I first saw the promo pictures because it looked so crisp in detail, and then I was super disappointed with in person because it has so much paint sculpt smudging all over this dang thing. It's going to be a little bit harder for you to see it on camera, and I don't want to waste too much time trying to point it out, but you can see some of it here. There's so much of the detail that just gets smudged out. The cheeks look really odd. The face just in general looks really odd, and it's actually quite inaccurate since I looked it up on the internet and was Googling it a little bit. I found that the brow horns here were actually a lot smaller and they were more hooked in shape, and then this nasal horn should be a lot larger because it was actually the largest out of all of them, which on this figure they're more of a consistent size, so that's quite inaccurate. But this one also has some of my favorite colors out of all of them. I love this like licheny blue color, and then this really vibrantly rustic orange on the belly. I think the colors are beautiful together. I like the blue eyes. I think that's pretty. So there's a lot to be liked in this figure, but there's also a lot holding it back in terms of the skull in particular. Some of the molding didn't really justify the figure as well as I thought it would. And the pose is a little bit more stagnant than some of the other ones. So just in general, it's got quite a few little issues, but it is still really good. So I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. So that's going to put it right here, just in front of the Pachyrhinosaurus and behind the Diabloceratops. So it leaves us with the last of them, the 2018 Triceratops. I will have to admit this is my favorite out of all of them. I just adore this figure. Triceratops is my favorite Ceratopsian genus. I love it. It's just so nice. The size, the quality of the model, the scalation looks incredible. Even the accuracy of how there's these nipple-like scales all over it, which is really cool. There is some paint smudging here and there. Like you can see here, the lines start to kind of get blurred, so there's a little bit of that. There is just a little bit of paint bleeding there on that thing right there, and there's also a little bit of a scrape on the inside of the horns there because of the shipping that Safari gave me with this one. It didn't come in the best of condition, but there's a lacking of detail on the horns, which is a little bit bothersome. I think they could have done something with that, and I think they could have done something better with the frill. Outside of that, I really do like this figure a lot. It's just a really beautiful figure. It has this nice greenish hue to it, even though technically the paint is black. It definitely looks mostly green from the side, as you can see here. So it's got this nice darkish green coloration to it, which is really nice, and just a very beautiful figure. There's a nice, you can see the scar there that kind of goes with the T-Rex that it is meant to pair with, because they're both injured. But yeah, it's a beautiful figure. It does have a couple minor issues, which is why I'm going to knock it down to a 9.5 out of 10. It's not going to quite get that 10 out of 10, but it is still my favorite, my personal favorite out of all of them. But I don't think it's quite the best. Which brings us to the final ranking, which utterly shocked me, but in order, the Vegaceratops from 2012 has 7.5 out of 10. Pachyrhinosaurus from 2014 has 8 out of 10. Regali Ceratops from 2018 has 8.5 out of 10. The Diabloceratops from 2013 has 9 out of 10. The Ideasource from 2017 has 9.5 out of 10. The Triceratops from 2018 also has 9.5 out of 10. And the NOS2 Dussehratops from 2015 has 10 out of 10. I was so shocked. I was honestly thinking it was going to be either one of these, and it was going to have to go back and forth. I was going to have to pick which one was going to be the winner. But then I just couldn't find anything wrong with this one. And by far, the NOS2 Dussehratops is the best Ceratopsian out of the bunch. I mean, it just literally has nothing wrong with it that I can complain about. So I'm shocked that that one's that high. I'm also surprised that the Pachyrhinosaurus ended up being as low as it was. I also thought this one did quite a little bit better than I thought it would. And the Vegaceratops, as much as I like it, I think it's one of the most disproportionate. These two are actually quite disproportionate because I actually like these two a lot more than they rank here. But anyways, this is just, it's been a very fun video going over the entire Ceratopsian line here. I'm going to give you guys one size comparison with the Control Safari LTD Tyrannus. So sorry this was a bit of a longer video, but then again we were covering 7 Ceratopsians. Now I will note, if you guys are wondering why the 2019 Styracosaurus isn't in this video, it's because I don't have it. Why? Because I'm not going to buy it. Why? Because I don't want it. But if you're really that curious why, like how it would rank with these, I'm pretty confident it's either going to be at the very back or it's going to be like somewhere between these two. Maybe at the very best, if some miracle goes through, it would be above the Pachyrhinosaurus. But the accuracy issues and other things on that figure keep me from wanting it. So, yeah. This is my Ceratopsian collection, excluding the Styracosaurus, and that's what I think of them, and this is what they rank in terms of quality. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.